All right. Hey, everyone. I am here with Greg Gilbert. Hey, Greg.
Hey, how are you?
I'm great. How are you today?
Doing well, thank you.
Good. Now, Greg is with Exit Realty out of Knoxville, Tennessee. You can hear it in his accent.
That's right.
And we were talking about with everything with COVID and people being more like transient, do we think that the American dream of home ownership could like go by the wayside? What do you think, Greg?
I don't know that it'll ever go by the wayside, but I think it's definitely changing. I think you're seeing a paradigm shift from when I was growing up. We lived in a life where, you know, you go to college, you get a good job, you make good pay, and everybody buys a house, and life's good.
Yeah.
And we just don't live that life anymore. And, technology has obviously taken over our world. And, just case in point with this COVID pandemic that's happened is, people have realized we don't really have to have as much brick and mortar to go to work anymore because
Right.
everybody works from their computer.
Yeah.
And so what that's done partly is it's driven home sales up, prices astronomically, across the country. And but what it's also done is changed the way that people live, and people don't want as much house as they used to have. They want smaller houses, nicer houses, and
Mhm.
sometimes they just like the idea of renting that they can lock and leave and go on vacation or travel for 6 or 8 months at a time because they have their laptops and cell phones with them. So
I wonder
they're
though if we'll see more because the like a lot of the travelers, like I'm a traveler myself, and we do a lot of sharing. Like we have co-working spaces, we have co-living spaces, like there's a lot of sharing. So when we were talking, I was thinking about like, will that translate into non-traveling life, like sort of real life, right? So what could that mean? Like you get this big house and I think a lot of us want to be like a lot of people want like lifestyle living too, like either to be close to the city or close to the beach or whatever. So let's just say you have like a bigger house kind of closer to the beach. Then instead of owning the whole house, maybe you own like a piece of the house.
so I've seen some fractional ownership things when it comes to luxury properties.
Mhm.
Don't really know how popular that is on a grand scale, but it makes sense.
Like
Uh,
a
but
timeshare
it's kind of like
almost.
it's kind of like the investment market is. When you're doing a big development or a big investment thing, it's easier to get 10 people with $100,000 than it is one person with $1 million.
Right.
And so, the fractional ownership things do make sense, especially when it comes to the McMansions.
Mhm.
Um, I
How does
think
that work?
it's a little more complicated when it comes to the fractional ownership thing. When it comes to regulation from a financial world,
Mhm.
uh, it has to be papered up pretty well with attorneys. But essentially, you're selling a fraction of a home, and so you have 10 owners that own 10% a piece,
Mhm.
and it's kind of like a timeshare, but you own it instead of you get 2 weeks in any location, twice a year or whatever like that. It's fixed location.
Yeah. I don't know. I think that would be really interesting. I have a feeling we're going to be beginning to see more of that, right? Especially like now with the prices being so high, when people go to sell them on the back end, there may be that may be one way to sell it. If you have like a two bedroom instead of selling it as one house, kind of dividing it in half and selling half of it.
I think your challenge would be to find enough like-minded people that you trust to go into. Uh, I don't think it's impossible. I
Mhm.
just think it's more challenging
Yeah, I agree with
because
that.
I don't know that I would want to own a luxury house with 9 people I didn't know.
I mean, I guess it depends. I don't know. I mean, I've done like co-living with people I didn't know, but yeah, it wasn't like all my money tied in. It was like a month or 2 months or something like that. It's a lot different.
Right. When it's yours, it's a different story versus, if you're just renting something, because then you don't care. But
Yeah.
it's that pride of ownership thing I still think exists even on a fractional basis.
Well, what do you think? I mean, part of what's going on now is that there are more people, mostly millennials, that are now in the market and they're buying than there's more of them than there ever has been before. So those would be the ones that I would think would do more of the fractional like ownership. Do you think the generations coming after them will be as involved in wanting to buy a house?
I don't think they're going to be as financially sound. I think generationally we keep getting further away from good finance basics.
Mhm.
And I think, with the job market changing, especially shifting to, more online and less brick and mortar when it comes to the need to go to a downtown office space and things like that. So I think that, these younger generations are going to be more renters than they are going to be buyers.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, definitely rents have like shot up too, and there's not enough rental properties. And maybe that will be the tide that changes it, because then you would do like co-renting places. And then they're like, oh, well, maybe I kind of like this. And you have a limit on land also. So it's like, oh, well, I kind of like this. This works, but I want it more long term than one or
Well,
two
yeah,
years. You know?
absolutely. And it would give them some option to have some ownership of something that they may not otherwise have that option.
Yeah. It would be interesting how it plays out. Maybe it's sort of like a stock thing, you know? I don't know.
Yeah, it definitely lends to the conversation of, definitely people are starting to live differently, and you're starting to see in major metros these micro apartments,
Hmm.
which, are 200 and 300 square feet, but they're ultra luxury, whatever
Right.
that means, for 200 square feet.
Right.
Um, but it's definitely, the real estate is not getting any cheaper, and
No.
especially in bigger cities, and the premiums going way up.
Yeah. It's true. It's true. Well, it's an interesting concept to think about how this is going to play out and it's not something that we're going to see in 1 year or 2 years. It's definitely something we're going to see in like 10,
I,
15, 20 years.
I agree with that.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I appreciate you being on and just kind of talking about this. If people have a referral in Knoxville, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
My mobile phone number is area code 865-805-0500. And my email address is just Greg at legendspartners.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Greg, for being on. Have a good rest of the day.
All right. Thank you.